Hi and welcome to another video by Jim the Car Guy. Today we have a fairly easy job. We're just going to be doing some basic maintenance. This vehicle is a 2006 Honda CRV with the 2.4 liter engine. The Accord is actually the exact same engine, the 2.4 liter, and I believe it goes from probably all the way back in like 2002 or something all the way up to the 2006 or 7. They're all basically the same motor. This is a 4-cylinder, as I said, the 2.4 liter. So we're going to take the top cover off to gain access to the coils. We're going to pull the coils up and we're going to replace the plugs below. What I would recommend doing is always replace it with the original plug. I think this comes with the NGK, so we are going to put the NGK back in there. But let's bring you up there. I'll show you what you're going to need, and we're going to get started. Okay, this is what we're going to need. We're just going to use a 1/4-inch ratchet with a driver just to take the cover off so we can gain access to the top of the coils, to get the coils out so we can get to the plugs. We're going to use an extension like this with a spark plug socket. We're going to need a magnet to lift the plugs out and to place the new ones back in. I am going to use a little bit of never-seize or anti-seize on the threads of the new spark plugs just so we don't have any problems. We're going to need a magnetic tray or whatever just to hold the bolts and screws so we don't lose them. And that's pretty much it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to take off this cover right here. We're going to take out these 4 10mm screws right here, and we're going to take this cover off and out of the way so we can gain access to the coils down below. All right, so all right, let me get you set up and we're going to continue. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to take that cover off that we just talked about so we can gain access to the ignition coils down below, and then we can pull out the spark plugs. Now these you really can't make a mistake because they can only go in one way. I love my metallic tray here because you can't lose any of the screws. All right, then we'll take this cover off right here. And I don't know if you can see this, but these are the coils right inside here. We're going to take these coils out. Now, these you do have to be careful because these can only go in one way. You see this one here has got a flat bolt there. It doesn't have an extended piece like this. This one needs to be here, this one here, and then the other one here is a regular bolt. So let's take those 4 out, and that'll allow us to move the coils out of the way. All right, now these, like I said, they can only go one way. So if you're going to remember where the bolts go, that's great. If you don't think you're going to remember or you're going to make a mistake, mark it someplace so you remember how it goes back together. The way I usually would recommend do is just put a mark right here on the cover like this, so you know exactly how it goes back together. All right, and then you take these out. Okay. Now the next thing you're going to notice is that you have to lift your coils out, but there's not enough wire to get the coils out. There's a little tab on the side right here. You just push that tab in, and then you rock it back and forth, and you pull it off the coil, and your coil comes right out. On every one, you do the same thing. Press that little tab in, rock it back and forth, and it comes right out, just like that. Press that tab, comes right out, like this. And the last one, press the tab in again, and you pull it out. The tab is fairly simple, you just push it in like that. Now, I want to point this out to you also. Very important with Hondas. If you take out this coil and there's oil on this spark plug boot here, any of these boots have oil in it, then you'll need to change the valve cover gasket. But as you can see, these are all dry. We are going to look down the spark plug tubes just to make sure. So let me grab a flashlight and we'll do that. I'm going to bring you in there so you can see what I'm talking about. If you look down the spark plug tubes itself, you can see if there's any oil down in there. I don't know if you're going to be able to see that. What you see down in there? There's no oil in that tube. Or that one. Let me just take a look in there and see. Okay, let me just take a look in here and see. Nope, every one of them is dry, so we don't have to worry about anything with that. All of our spark plugs are nice and dry. Now, let's get this light in so you can see maybe a little better. Okay. Remember, counterclockwise to take it off, clockwise to put them on. Once you crack them loose, so you can take them out by hand, you can unscrew it all the way until it's nice and loose in there. Okay, then we just take a magnet, stick a magnet down in there, and you can pull the spark plugs out one at a time. Just me, but I always put them where I took them out, and this way I can just look at them and make sure that there's no issues in that cylinder, especially when you get up to this kind of mileage. Okay, now as you can see, they're actually wearing really pretty decent right there. You can see that there's no issues with those plugs at all. They look really good. All right, now being that there's 140 some odd thousand, it's just time to change it. Now, what I always do, whenever you do these, always make sure you use the correct plug. This is an NGK, 1Z, FR, 6K, exact same plug. All right, just let me look up the specifications for the spark plug gap, and we'll come right back. All right, I just want to talk about this before anybody sends me an email and we talk about this offline. I want to put this on the video so that everybody knows. Whenever you take out a spark plug out of a car, this is the original factory plug here. And as you can see, right here, it's going to say on the plug, you see IR, NGK, IR. That's an iridium spark plug. This is the number of the plug itself. What I always do is always make sure that you get the right spark plug for the job. You'll notice that these plugs here, it says on there, laser iridium. That's what that is there, LR, laser iridium. Make sure you use the right ones. These plugs are actually more expensive than the normal standard plug. They'll tell you, oh, they'll work just as well. They won't. Make sure you use the iridium spark plugs. They're a few bucks more, but you'll be very happy. You won't have any issues. You won't have any problems. It'll run perfectly. These are in this car for 140 some odd thousand miles. Never an issue. The only reason why we're doing it is basic maintenance. That's it. All right, so make sure you get the correct plug for the correct job. don't cut corners. You want to do this job one time, out the door, and don't have to worry about it. All right, so don't believe what they tell you, the big box stores, the large parts stores, because they're going to tell you you're going to pay 10 bucks, 12 bucks for this plug right here. They're going to tell you they're going to give you a plug for $1.99. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Stick with the plug. You know it's the right one. You're not going to have a problem. Okay, back to work. Enough BS. Okay, now even though these spark plugs come in a tube like this to keep them from being banged around and closing the gap up, I would always check them just to play it safe. Over the years, I can't tell you how many times I've taken a plug out of the packaging and took a look at it, and the electrode is crushed down from somebody in the parts store throwing the box around or banging it around or whatever. You know, it always winds up, you know, getting damaged. Not all the time, but it does happen. All right. Now I did look up the specs on this. These plugs actually call for 39 to 43 thousandths of an inch. So 41 is the ideal place where it should be, and that's exactly where it is. I put a little bit of Never-Seez on here. Not a lot, just a tiny little bit, just to make it go in a little bit easier. You don't have to if you don't have it. You don't have to do this, but just a little bit I always put on. All right. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the plugs back in the car. Now, I just want to point this out to you. When you put these plugs back in, you can screw them in by hand as tight as you can with this extension. But they need to be torqued in with a torque wrench. Now, this particular vehicle calls for 13 foot-pounds, so that's what we're going to do. We'll put the plugs in first, and then we'll torque them back in place. All right, I hope you can see there okay. Now, I want to point this out to you also. A lot of times, people will just take a plug and drop a plug down in the cylinder. You don't want to drop it, because when you drop it, you always have that possibility of closing that electrode down a little bit. You take the plug, you put it in, you put your finger in the top, and you lower it all the way down to the very bottom. Same thing here, and lower it all the way down to the bottom. Okay? So now all of our plugs are down. We know we didn't close the gap on them. We're going to take our ratchet, just the extension, and we're going to tighten them down as far as we can by hand. Now remember, we just tighten them all the way down. We always catch them by hand. You never want to use a ratchet. Okay. Now that we have everything caught down as far as we can by hand, we know everything is in there nice and tight. Now we're going to grab our torque wrench and we're going to torque it down. Okay. Okay. All right, now that we have them all torqued. Hey, what's up, buddy? How you doing? All right, we'll come right back. Okay, sorry about that. The guy who just came in now, he says to me, "Who are you talking to?" There's nobody here in the shop except for you guys watching me here on the camera. The guy thought I was losing my marbles. All right, let me get in there. I'm gonna wrap this up and we'll finish it off. Okay. All right, so now remember we torqued all of our spark plugs in, so they're all tightened up the way they're supposed to be, 13 foot-pounds. Now, if you don't have a torque wrench, you can snug them in there. Don't go crazy over tightening it because you're screwing into an aluminum head. You don't want to damage everything, but you can do it without a torque wrench. All right, this goes down inside here, and we're going to put our electrical contact back on, and we'll listen for it to snap in, and then we'll push that back down, and we're going to do that in each one of them. So our coils are back in. Now remember, we had different bolts in the coils. Now in case you didn't remember, you did put your marks right here. So you know that this one gets the one that's actually got the little stud sticking through it, so you can reattach your valve cover. And you just move your coil around just so you can get it screwed in there properly. Now you don't want to confuse these with the bolts that are tough for the top cover. This one has the little extension sticking through where you can connect the 10mm nut onto. Again, this one goes right in here. Screw this one in too. And if we have more cord, then we'll tighten them up. All right. And now we'll tighten up the top coils. They don't have to be real tight. We're just going to snug them in. Okay, nice and tight. And last but not least, we're going to put our cover back on. And now if I put those bolts in the right spot, they'll line up just like this, and you can screw your nut on just temporarily. You're not going tight yet though. Same thing over here. All right. And now we can tighten them down. Now that you have all four of them caught, you can tighten them in. Again, these are just going snug. You don't have to be crazy and tighten them down too tight. All right. You should have no bolts left over now. Okay, now we're going to start it up, and we'll make sure that everything is okay. Everything is on tight, so start it up, and we'll see what, make sure everything is okay now. Start it up. That's it. All right, shut it off. Turn it off. Thank you. Okay, that's it, you're all set. All right, main thing is you don't want to over tighten the spark plugs. You over tighten them up and you strip out the cylinder head, you will be pulling out your hair. You'll have such a problem. So make sure you don't over tighten them. If you don't have a torque wrench, just snug them in there just a little bit. You don't have to go crazy with it. Obviously do not use a 1/2" ratchet. Use a 3/8 ratchet on there. And that's it, you're all set. All right, anybody has any questions or comments, you want to talk to me about anything, send me an email. I'll be more than happy to talk to anybody about anything. As always, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.